Greetings, welcome to week 1, unit 3 related to engineering programs in India. In the previous unit, we reviewed how engineering education has evolved and is evolving. That's what you need to remember. Though the transformations have officially taken place, it is still evolving. It hasn't been throughout the world. Engineering programs have not yet completely made the transition to the fifth phase. In this unit, we try to understand the nature of engineering programs in India. Every country has a slightly different way of organizing their engineering education. In India, engineering programs are offered as per regulations of All India Council for Technical Education, AICTE. We'll keep referring to that as AICTE. They are offered by Tier 1, which are academically autonomous, and Tier 2, academically non-autonomous institutions. There are actually three varieties. You have universities and deemed to be universities, they are completely autonomous, and many of them offer engineering programs on their campuses. And then there are a large number of engineering colleges affiliated to a university, but within that you have two varieties. Some of the institutions are autonomous but still affiliated to the university. The other ones are academically non-autonomous, Tier 2 institutions. But as far as AICTE is concerned, we consider it as Tier 1 and Tier 2 institutions. At present, more than 80% of engineering colleges are academically non-autonomous, that are Tier 2 institutions. A little brief history of AICTE. In 1943, that is prior to independence, the Constitution of Technical Education Committee of Central Advisory Board of Education. During the British days, there was a Technical Education Committee was created, and in 1945, AICTE was formed as a body. And in 1987, a number of years later, the All India Council for Technical Education Act was passed by both the Houses of Parliament. That is when actually in say 1987, the somewhat present form of AICTE started operating. The AICTE Act provides for the establishment of an All India Council for Technical Education with a view to proper planning and coordinated development of technical education system throughout the country. The promotion of qualitative improvement of such education in relation to planned quantitative growth. And then regulation and proper maintenance of norms and standards in the technical education system and for the matters connected therewith. So, they were given the responsibility of planning and coordinated development and promotion of qualitative improvement, and then regulatory authority and proper maintenance of norms. They first tell what are the norms accepted, and then if some institution is not following these norms, they are not conducting the engineering education, then they can take action for that. And officially their AICTE was vested with statutory authority for planning, formulation and maintenance of norms and standards, quality assurance through accreditation, funding in priority areas, monitoring and evaluation. maintaining parity of certification and awards, the management of technical education in the country. So they are vested with these responsibilities. Then we come to National Board of Accreditation called NBA, established in the year 1994 under Section 10U of AICTE Act as a unit under AICTE. It was responsible for accreditation. Even prior to 1994, AICTE was responsible for it, but there was no separate section created under AICTE till 1994. And it was operating as a unit under AICTE, but in 2010, the NBA became autonomous. It became a separate body. The Memorandum of Association and Rules of the NBA were amended in April 2013 to make it administratively as well as financially independent of AICTE. While there would be representatives of AICTE on the board of NBA, but it is a completely autonomous in the sense administratively as well as financially. And India became a permanent member of the Washington Accord in 2014. We will see what it means. The NBA since 2015 requires that engineering programs are conducted in the framework of outcome-based education. What is Washington Accord? It recognizes the substantial equivalence of programs accredited by signatory countries. By what happened, people have been moving around from one country to the other. Engineering graduates were moving from one country to the other, and they were practicing their profession in those countries. But then how does that country recognize that the concerned person is adequately trained to operate within their countries? So the Washington Accord came into being. What it says, it recommends that graduates of programs accredited by any of the signatory bodies be recognized by the other bodies as having met the academic requirements for entry to the practice of engineering. That is the purpose of Washington Accord. India needs to conduct its engineering programs in alignment with the criteria of Washington Accord. However, it can suitably make alterations that reflect the national priorities. Initially, about 8 countries were signatories to that, but that subsequently, over a period of time, a number of other countries also became members of this, and India became a signatory in 2014. What happened is in 2015, NBA has defined a certain set of accreditation criteria, and these were reviewed recently, and at the beginning of 2025, the accreditation criteria were considerably modified. What does it mean? The number of criteria have been reduced from 10 to 9. The weightages have been, for each criterion, have been modified. Even the groupings of various sub-criteria have all been changed. That we will explore in later units of this course. In addition, it has become much more in alignment with that of Washington Accord. Instead of creating our own national priorities, we are practically 100% in alignment with Washington Accord. Now, the outcomes of any course should also indicate or integrate the WKs. WKs are Washington Accord Knowledge and Attitude Profile. They are 9 in number. You have to, outcomes of any course should be integrated with these WKs. We will see later in this. And they are very similar to ABET criterion 3. Now they also have A to J. Earlier they had A to K, now they have A to J, 11 of them, 11 criteria. They call them graduate attributes. We call them program outcomes. It's only relabeling, as we mentioned earlier. Now, what is outcome based education? An outcome of an education is what the student should be able to do at the end of a program or a course or an instructional unit. Please note the focus is on what the student should be able to do. What this means is the entire education now becomes student centric. It is not that teacher is irrelevant. Earlier it was 100% teacher centric. Now the focus is on what the student has learned and how do you facilitate him to learn that. Outcome based education is an approach to education in which decisions about the curriculum, instruction and assessment are driven by the exit learning outcomes that the student should demonstrate at the end of a program or a course. So you start with exit learning outcomes. At the end of a program or a course, what is it that the student should be able to do, and work backwards. How do I prepare him to attain those outcomes? What it means is in outcome based education, the end product defines what is the process through which you should follow to get that product. Okay. So product defines the process. That is the theme of outcome based education. It is the opposite of input based education, where the emphasis is on the teaching and the system is happy to accept whatever is the result. The teacher, with all his good intentions, he teaches, but the learning part is left to the student, and we test the student whether he has learnt it or not. So that is the difference between input based education and outcome based education. So we state what the student should be able to do as a set of statements. So features of an outcome statement, whenever you write outcomes, it must have certain features. Should unambiguously state what the student should be able to do or perform. There should not be any ambiguity. And then what the students do or perform are observable and measurable. One should be able to observe whether the student has attained a particular outcome or not, and they should be measurable also. Not only observable, but they should be measurable. I should have certain measurement. Students should be able to understand what it means. It is not the ambiguity, but if it is written in a very complicated language, the student may not be able to understand what exactly he is supposed to be doing. So it should be comprehensible. One should be careful in writing these outcome statements. And these outcome statements should be able to provide guidance to students in planning their learning. Once he looks at the these outcomes are to be communicated at the appropriate time to the students. So when he looks at each outcome statement, he should be able to plan his learning activities accordingly, because every student is not the same, and the way he has responded or learnt in the classroom may also vary for an individual, but the outcome statement should provide guidance to them in planning their own learning. And the outcomes in any engineering program are identified at three levels. One is program educational objectives. The next level is program outcomes and program specific outcomes. And third one is course outcomes. Let's see what they are. When you are designing an undergraduate program, let's say electrical and electronic engineering, so the designers of those programs are normally what they are called boards of studies. They have the vision or a picture of the engineer, what are all the things he should be able to do. Okay, and they may be translated into their own language, but they do have that. But does the graduate actually be doing any of those things? Not all of them, at least a subset of those things, or is doing something completely different. If he is doing something completely different, then he is trained for something and he is doing something else. Of course, that depends on the market conditions and so on. So, the program educational objectives are broad statements that describe the career and professional accomplishments in 4 to 5 years after graduation that the program is preparing graduates to achieve. So, you are trying to capture in a set of statements that what the graduates should be doing by the time they have 4 to 5 years of experience. Why 4 to 5 years? Why not beyond that? Because this 4 to 5 years experience prepares him for something from which he will move on to many other things. He can move to management positions, he can change his career, he may go into something else, all that. So, the program educational objectives reflect only what accomplishments of graduates in 4 to 5 years time. How to write them we will see in later units. Then comes the two program outcomes and program specific outcomes. Program outcomes are statements that describe what the students graduating from any engineering program should be able to do at the time of graduation, irrespective of the discipline. Because whether you are an electrical engineer or a civil engineer or a mechanical engineer, you must have certain common traits as an engineer, and these are captured by a set of PEOs. These PEOs are not prepared by the institution offering engineering programs. They are given by the National Board of Accreditation. Coming to program specific outcomes, PSOs are statements that describe what the graduates of a specific engineering program should be able to do at the end of graduation. So, here the specificity of the program will come into picture. If he is an electrical and electronic engineer, graduate of that program, then what are the specific things he should be able to do are captured by PSOs. So, every program will have to write or capture in a small number of statements what in that particular thing through the core courses, what these graduates should be able to do. That is the meaning of PSOs. Now, course outcomes are statements that describe what students should be able to do at the end of a course referred to earlier, still some colleges do that, as paper or subjects. So here henceforth we will only refer to it as a course. This usage of this term is slowly becoming popular. So, like for example, a program has a set of courses. A course is something that is offered over a semester and so on. And COs are statements, a set of statements that describe what students should be able to do at the end of a course. How many statements? That we will elaborate more when we come to how to write course outcomes. Now, the engineering education in OBE framework can be captured like this. Here, the graduates of 12th standard, they come through certain type of screening process to an institution offering engineering programs. What is this institute? It consists of management, faculty, and certain academic processes. Okay, all the three combined together, they produce engineering graduates with defined abilities. These abilities are described in terms of POs, PSOs, and COs, which we just now described. But this production is kind of influenced or sometimes controlled by several agencies. First of all, the university to which the institution is affiliated, state government, because education is a concurrent subject, so state government has a role, and then AICTE and NBA. In addition to that, obviously, industry is the one that that finally employs the graduates of this program. So, industry, though not directly, has some influence in through variety of means. They have members of representing certain industries on these committees here. They may offer internships. They may give some. Even the industry experts may come and conduct certain courses in the institution and so on. And then the parents also have a role. Compared to the earlier era, where parents hardly had any role, but these days parents do have role and they do play their role. Okay, so all these agencies together influence the production of the engineering graduates, and these engineering graduates are involved after 4 years in activities identified by the PEOs. Okay, and the graduates seek mostly placement as a certain percentage, which is not insignificant, go for higher education, going through GATE, GRE, GMAT, CAT and so on. Okay, and then still very small percentage of the people they become entrepreneurs. The people becoming entrepreneurs is slowly kind of growing in India. Some people want to go become entrepreneurs almost immediately after graduation. Some people gain experience for a few years before they become entrepreneurs. So you have a some people even drop out of the program at second year, third year, and there are enough number of cases where they have become entrepreneurs on their own. But where they go with regard to placement, higher education and entrepreneurs is not completely in the hands of the institution. While they need to be sensitive to where they are going, but the actually how many people go into that, into what category is not under the control of the institute, because there are social factors like family factors and so on, And then you have economic factors or market factors which will influence students to take decisions. Okay, so broadly, this is a structure, and one need to understand exactly to what extent a certain what do you call stakeholder can influence this process. As per AICTE, engineering programs in India are conducted in 8 semesters over 4 years. It is now it is universal uh, to implement semester system. And until recently, there was no restriction on the number of credits that are used. But right now, it has been stated that engineering program should carry about 160 credits. If you want to make minor changes to that, like make it 162 up to 165, yes, it is permitted. But minimum is 160 credits. And also they have curricular components including humanities and social sciences, basic sciences, engineering sciences, professional core, professional electives, open electives, and projects and internships. Okay, so this is broadly the structure. The credit definition has been evolving. We will elaborate more on that in later units. Interestingly, the number of programs offered in India were something like about 8, like mechanical, civil, electrical, electronics, you have telecommunication, computer science, chemical engineering, metallurgy, like that. But today, if you look at the listed programs by AICTE, they are more than 100 labels wise. Okay, we will not debate on that, but because of the market requirements, many institutions want to specially offer specially labeled programs like AI and ML and so on, like that. Now, OBE NBA framework is again, when we look at accreditation, we will be spending a lot more time at each phase of this. Any institution has a vision. This is where it wants to be. It will keep stating that this is their vision. And they do have some mission to achieve their vision at any given point of time. Of course, the mission will keep changing over a period of time. On a much longer time scale, the vision may also change. An institution may respond to changing scenarios of the country. It may alter its vision once in maybe 10 years, 8 years, and so on. And now, once there is a vision and mission of the institute, the department cannot be at variance with that. A department is one unit of a institute, but depending on the type of activities it is getting involved or specificity of activities, it will have its own vision and mission. So, vision and mission of the department also matter, because within those the faculty and students are operating. And the vision and mission of the department leads to the program educational objectives, but these are not arbitrarily written. They have to be prepared by an appropriate body, whatever name you give. It can be board of studies, or it could be some advisory board where it will have representatives of various stakeholders, and they form a proper committee, and they do have a process through which they have to go through, and they come to well defined conclusions, after which you get the program educational objectives. So, it is not a set of arbitrary statements. And the same body will also write program specific outcomes. Okay, it may be prepared as a some initial homework may be done by the faculty of the department, but they have to be finalized by the this body specifically created for that. And the National Board of Accreditation identifies the program outcomes. They have identified in 2015. Now in 2025 they have slightly modified the numbers and as well as wording. Together, PEOs and PSOs together lead to curriculum. It is not the reverse process. You identify the courses you want to teach and put them together to write PEOs and PSOs. It is from PEOs and PSOs the curriculum has to evolve, and the curriculum has these 7 components which we have already stated, that humanities, social sciences, basic sciences, engineering sciences, professional core, professional electives, open electives and project or internship. And how much weightage you give it to each one of them, it can differ from one institute to another slightly, not significantly. And most of these, out of the 7, 6 of them are offered through courses. Okay, and these courses are described in terms of course outcomes. So broadly, that is the framework of engineering programs in the OBE framework and as well as NBA. In the next unit, we will present some aspects of the NBA and NAAC accreditation. Thank you very much for your attention.